Hello, hello, hello. Today we're going to be looking at playing around Fox's threat range and spacing around Fox's moves as Sheik. This was inspired by one Aviond, who asked, "Is there a solid guide or infographic for meaningful movement and spacing versus Fox? Anytime I try to make space and learn how to move properly, I just get nair/drilled more often than I like to admit." So we're basically going to be looking at the spacing that you need to be playing around when you're playing against Fox, and how you should be playing around that spacing. And it's there are a lot of different ways to do it. So I've identified, I've looked at 4 different videos of 4 different Sheiks, and I've pulled out 4 timestamps from each of them, which all have different interactions with them playing around Fox's threat range and demonstrating good spacing and good techniques to space around Fox's moves. So this is the first video we're going to look at. This is Captain Faceroll versus Lucky. And so the first timestamp is at 21 seconds. Let's go to that. Let's turn down the volume. So right there at 21 seconds. So you see, so what's happening here is that Captain Faceroll is identifying this spacing. The spacing that he has to position around in order to space around Fox's moves. And you can see here, I'll get it in the snipping tool. So Fox is pretty much right here where Lucky's head is. So Fox's threat range from a dash extends to right about there. It extends to right about that spot where Sheik is. So you can cover that threat range in a short hop aerial, and a running shine, and a grab, and a run cancel down tilt. And if he dashes a little bit longer, he can overshoot. But this is about the range you can reach immediately. So you'll see that when Faceroll identifies the spacing, he counteracts it, or he plays around it. Oh, let's go into 0.5 speed by doing this wave dash back, and then this F tilt to stuff Fox's approach. And it almost works. It is literally 1 frame away from working, and if it had worked, Captain Faceroll would have had a very big opportunity to get a big punish and take Fox's stock here. So in this example, what we see Faceroll using to navigate the spacing. Let's replay that situation again. So he dashes forward to Fox, sees that Fox is going to be actionable. Wave dashes back at this spacing, the edge of Fox's threat range, and then wave dashes back into an F tilt to try and beat the approach, and it almost works. So the next situation is going to be at 38 seconds. I'll just let it play. I'm just going to leave it at 0.75 speed. Various neutral things are happening. We're not going to talk about those, though. So here it is. Here it is again. This is the same thing that I identified in that last situation. Captain Faceroll is playing around that same threat range that I identified earlier. So this is an opportunity to show it a little bit more concretely. So basically, the spacing that Captain Faceroll is playing around is kind of like that. Like, maybe it can go a little bit further, but generally that's about Fox's threat range. So Captain Faceroll can approach up until right about there. And of course, this is Fox's short hop threat range. His full hop threat range is a bit bigger, but it's most common for Fox players to use his short hop aerials to approach, rather than to use his full hop aerials. Although some Foxes, like IBDW, will just spam full hop aerials, but most Foxes are going to be using this short hop threat range. And the full hop threat range is kind of more of a Sheik versus Fox spacing 201 whereas this is Sheik versus Fox spacing 101. But anyways, so the blue line right about here is the furthest that Sheik can approach into without being at risk of getting hit. And as Fox is dash dancing around, this line, this blue area, is constantly changing. So the area that you can approach into is constantly changing against Fox, and you need to be adjusting it constantly. So here we see Captain Faceroll doing that kind of like slight micro spacing, like that slight micro spacing to adjust around that shifting spacing, like that shifting position of Fox. And by doing that, he's able to set up this F tilt again. And another thing that's happening here is that Faceroll actually does approach into that spacing a little bit. Like you can see that Faceroll dashes forward right up until he reaches the edge of that spacing. Like I'll show it in the Slimming tool again, but like basically you can see that the spacing has shifted a little bit, and this is Fox's threat range, and Sheik can approach right up until there. So Faceroll recognizes this and does a wave dash back right at this spot, which then sets up this F tilt. And again, if Lucky had chosen a different option, this F tilt would have been very good. And I don't want to go into like specific like RPS stuff here, but this F tilt is this F tilt's a really solid decision. Like if this F tilt hits, then Fox might just be dead. And against a lot of Foxes, this F tilt would work. It's just that Lucky is very good at playing this matchup and knows what to be looking out for. But also, because it wasn't a super well spaced F tilt, but it was kind of spaced, so it's a little bit harder for Fox to actually punish it. Whereas if it would be different if it was like a point blank F tilt. So we're going to let it play again. Next situation's at about 50 seconds. Here it is. So this whole sequence is just this concept being demonstrated over and over again. So again, Fox is at a standstill. Fox is dashing towards Sheik. So again, the spacing you have to really be respecting is right about here. Right about in the Fox's threat range ends right about where Sheik is right now. So basically Sheik has to get out of this spacing, but still do it while only having this much space to work with. Sheik can occupy this area of the stage right here. She can't be in this red area because that's where Fox can approach into. So she has to position herself using this blue area. And you'll see that's what Faceroll does. He wave dashes in place right in that blue area so that he can react to what Fox does. And again, if we look at that spacing, the spacing that Faceroll is moving into, or moving away from rather, again, it's that same exact threat range that we were just looking at. And again, Faceroll wave dashes back. And then again, the situation happens. Faceroll sees that he is approaching into that spacing. So he wave dashes back again. This time it's a little bit later. Again, he doesn't end up winning the neutral interaction, but this is still very solid stuff. And this is also something, this fair that Faceroll does is also something that you can do as well, besides just wave dash back F tilt. You can do stuff like wave dash back fair to hit Fox's approach. And it almost works again. Again, it almost works. It comes very close to working. It's just that Lucky is just too good, and that it takes that. Like even if you generate a good neutral opportunity against Lucky, no matter how good you are, sometimes it's just not going to work out. So now we'll skip to the next one. I'm only doing 4 interactions from each of these players, just because I want to cover a wide variety of playstyles. So here I'll just give you the setup. So here we are. Now we're at this spacing again. And Faceroll identifies it. And this time, because Fox is at high percent, any strong move will kill him. And Faceroll again identifies where Fox's threat range extends to right about there. Maybe a lot. That's a bit too far. It extends like right about there. So what Faceroll is seeing here is that if he jumps, if he short hops right here, he'll have a good angle with Fair to cover any sort of approach from Fox that will go into this zone. So by choosing Fair, he's getting around like any sort of like run up short hop Fair, run up short hop Nair, run up short hop Drill, running Shine, running Grab, running Down Tilt. All of that stuff will get covered by the Fair Faceroll does here. And then because it's an auto cancel Fair, he's able to recover and ended up getting the Whiff Punish Grab. So that's Faceroll. As you can see, he's kind of like a more fundamental ground movement based Fox or ground movement based Sheik. Lots of lead dash back, lots of like standard movement stuff. Definitely a really good Sheik to learn from as far as learning movement and space and using movement to navigate spacings goes. And the next Sheik up is another good fundamental Sheik, also very good for learning spacing stuff with. It's Swedish Delight from Genesis 7 against Kevin Maples. And I'm using non-slippy clips here, just because I think, for me personally, I don't think that slippy sets are the best to learn from, just because I think it's better to learn from sets that are played on CRT, where both players are playing on the same setup, rather than learning from sets played on slippy, where the setup quality can vary wildly between players. Like, one player setup is not created, like, not all slippy setups are created equal. So, especially for Sheik, where your gameplay matters a lot on reacting, if you're running a setup that has like a 1 or 2 frame input delay compared to a 144 Hz monitor, desktop, like Mayflash, overclocked Mayflash setup, then you can miss out on a lot of opportunities just because your setup is inferior. So for that reason, we're looking at exclusively CRT gameplay. So here, Swedish is doing the same thing that we just saw the Faceroll do in the last clip, where he's seeing this spacing. And it's important to note here that even though Fox just came out of leg, he is still actionable. And when Fox is actionable, you need to imagine at all times that there is that threat range I've been talking about. You need to imagine this right here. Just imagine Fox as like a moving threat range, and imagine it is always out. It's probably more like that. And here, so you always need to be playing around that threat range, and that's something that we've been seeing with Faceroll, and that we're going to see with Swedish and all these other Sheiks. So here, Swedish sees that threat range right here, and he decides to play around it by doing this Fair that interacts really favorably with Kevin Maples doing an approach. The Fair interacts very favorably with pretty much everything Fox can do there. And then again, this is the main thing I want to point out. So here, Swedish is landing, right? And this is kind of a more advanced example of how to use your movement to navigate the spacing against Fox. But Swedish is landing from a short hop. And this is the big one I want to talk about from this timestamp. So Swedish is landing from a short hop, and again, this whole area is covered by Fox. So Swedish is landing into this area that is covered by Fox, and Fox is dashing at him. So Swedish sees that he can't land into this safely, and this is his answer. It's very, very simple, very elegant, but perfect for navigating the situation. Because this whole space right here, this space over here off the picture, that's all safe. So if Swedish wave lands back into that space, and then he is safe from Fox's approach options, and that's how he's able to get that grab, and that's how he's able to make it look so perfectly spaced, because it was perfectly spaced. He just identified the spacing immediately. Now we're going to skip ahead to the next example of this. And this example, again, Swedish doesn't exactly get a huge opening off this, but this is still really good gameplay. And again, so you can, I don't think I need to draw the threat range anymore. I think you can pretty clearly visualize it, but Swedish is at the edge of it. So he sees that, wave dashes away, and then positions himself just in perfect position to punish this nair. He just doesn't really get it. I think Swedish wanted to intercept it when it was a little bit higher, because high nair on shield is pretty easy to punish. He just it just didn't work out for him in that way. But he's still able to just get to ledge from a bad situation. Next example is at 259, and now that I've explained kind of the basics, I'm going to start speeding through these a little bit faster, just because I don't want to explain the same thing over and over again. So here, this is definitely a more advanced thing. This is we're moving away from strictly grounded movement here a little bit. But here we see another example of that same idea we've been talking about, where Sheik is in that threat range, and Sheik needs to do something to get out of there, economically and quickly. So here, Swedish sees that he's landing inside that threat range, so he dashes away, and then both sets himself up so that he's safe, and also so that he could potentially whiff punish Fox if Fox decides to approach into this. Because at this point, if Fox was aerialing into that space, Sheik would be actionable to whiff punish it at this point. But because Kevin Maple is really good, because Kevin Maple is really good, he recognizes that Swedish is looking out for that whiff punish opportunity and just does this full hop. But the core point is that Swedish sees that he's landing in that threat range, and then immediately gets out of there and does it with an option, dash to wave dash, that allows him to both reposition safely and also opens himself up to potentially whiff punching Fox's option here. Now we have another example at 339. So this is another example where there are a few different times that the situation plays out. Like here, we see, this is also an important thing to note. Here we see that Sheik hits Fox with a strong move, but because Fox is so strong in this position, Sheik is forced to wave dash away. She can't really aggress on Fox from here, especially at that percent. So now we see Swedish kind of like slowly repositioning, still minding that spacing, and repositioning to this time intercept the nair, catch it high on shield, and grab it. He ends up dropping the tech chase, but again, that was a really good opportunity, and he totally could have carried it for quite a while. That totally could have been Kevin Maples' stock. So that's all we have to look at from Swedish. Those are our 4 examples. Again, so with Swedish, you kind of saw that he used his shield more than Faceroll did. He used his shield to reposition himself, and to like kind of catch Fox's aerials high on shield, whereas Faceroll was kind of more focused on cleanly outpositioning them or cleanly beating them with F-tilt. So Swedish is more concerned, is more interested in actually intercepting them with shield, or just beating them with a short hop aerial. So the next Sheik is going to be Spark. We're going to be looking at his set against Shabo at House of Pain 22. So we're going to be going to 129. I'm not sure why there's a dislike on this video, because this is our Lord and Savior Spark. So here we see some more general stuff. This is an example of Spark kind of recognizing that spacing and playing around it with a short hop back aerial, or a short hop back, which is another very good option for navigating that spacing. And then this is a situation that really is illustrative of this concept. So here, so Spark whiffs an F tilt in front of Fox. And again, you can recognize that this spacing is that threat range. This spacing is that danger spacing that I was diagramming. So here, Spark immediately dashed the wave dashes away. And then, again, this dash to wave dash is designed so that you both get away and reposition safely, and also open yourself up to potentially whiff punching Fox here. Especially because here, if you can whiff punch with a dash attack, if Fox misses an aerial in front of you, you're in a really good spot. And you can probably take that opening and get his entire stock with it. So then, so the situation after this, right? So here, this is something we're going to see. This is kind of like a more advanced way to handle the situation, because you can just handle the situation, handle the spacing using just movement, but you can also handle the situation using an attack, especially when Fox is at 62%, when Fox is above knockdown percent. So here, Spark sees this spacing again, and answers it by just F-tilting. And here the Fox was trying to go into Threading Shine, so that's why he ASDI'd down. But this is just an example of something that's really good in the situation besides just movement. Just seeing this and just F-tilting. Especially if you're at low percent, and if you think Fox is going to Running Shine, then F-tilt becomes pretty good. Just because Running Shine is only active for one frame, and Fox needs to be very precise in order to not get hit by F-tilt up before that one frame comes out. So Spark gets the grab. I don't think he kills off this. This is just really good gameplay by Spark here. We're just going to let it roll until 159, which is the next interaction. Okay. So here, this is an example of handling that spacing. Because again, Sheik is actionable right about here, right? And this is... I'm going to break out Snipping Tool because this is a little bit more higher level. But this is... So Fox can pretty much control all of this space. Especially because Fox was actionable before Sheik was. Like, if you look at how long Fox was actionable, he could have already been dashing at Sheik much earlier. So Fox could have been, if he was dashing, he could have been right here, already in place to threaten his options on Sheik. So that means that there is no safe space for Sheik to dash back into. She can no longer retreat and try to whiff punish an aerial. She can only approach or stay in place. So what you see Spark do here is he recognizes that, and then he approaches into it. He approaches into that space with a running shield. And this is the same exact kind of running shield that we just saw Swedish use, where you handle it by shielding the aerial, the Nair, high on shield, and then grabbing the Nair somehow. So Swedish just did a raw grab, and Spark takes it one level further and does a wave dash out of shield into grab. Because I think, I'm not going to go too deep on it, but I think the reasoning behind this is that it's much better to be in this position and getting shined if you're wrong than to be on the other side of Fox and getting shined if you're wrong. And you can also dodge the shine because the aerial is so high. You can just dodge it with wave dash. So you see Spark just aggressing into that space and kind of directly contesting Fox's aerial, much like we saw Swedish do. You have another example at 254. So this is another kind of more advanced like idea to do in this situation. So here again, we have that same situation where Fox and Sheik are both in that spacing. Fox is actionable, Sheik is actionable. So the way Spark handles this spacing is, so he identifies, right, that Fox's threat range includes Sheik right now. Fox can threaten Sheik with his position, but that's only with. But if Fox just tunnel visions and does a standard short hop aerial or like grounded approach that a lot of Foxes will do here, it opens up the opportunity for Spark to jump over and then needle that spacing that Fox is threatening. So basically, Spark is playing with the idea that since Fox is so likely to approach into this position, he can just assume that Fox is going to approach anyways, and then do something that just super beats Fox approaching into that spacing, but kind of loses other stuff. So you see here that Fox does the level 1 standard option here of doing a running like grounded approach option into that spacing, and Spark is just able to flip over him and needle him. He doesn't exactly get the needle. He doesn't exactly get much off of it, but this could have been very, very good for Spark. And if nothing else, by doing this, he actually flips stage advantage here. So now he has a ton more space to dash back into, and he has center stage control. So the next example is going to be at 318. So this is another example of how to navigate this spacing when you don't have that much space to dash back into. Because again, if you look here, you can see that spacing is happening again. And Spark rather doesn't really have that much space to dash back into because he has like that much space. And Fox is already dashing at him. So Spark maximizes that space that he has and does this dash back into crouch, which puts him at the very edge of the stage. But it also allows him to, it's the fastest way to get here. And it allows him to then do this dash attack backwards out of crouch and beat Fox's approach option that he does. And again, so again, a lot of what's happening here is that you'll see that Sheiks are playing around Fox's approach options by either repositioning to outside the threat range, that threat range we've been talking about, repositioning outside of it and trying to either reposition and or whiff punish, or they're trying to intercept that threat range with an F tilt or shield, or they're trying to circumvent it entirely, like we saw Spark do with that full hop needle. But here we see Spark just really maximize his usage, maximize whatever stage he has left, and use it to its fullest to get himself out of that range, reposition, and then also try and set up a whiff punish. So that's the last Spark clip. So now we're kind of ascending in complexity the more with each Sheik, and now we're going to look at Plup. So I pulled 5 clips from this one rather than just 4 because Plup is so sick. And the first part of this first game is kind of just them squabbling. So we're going to go to 215, which is the first time that we really see this this threat range idea kind of come up in neutral gameplay. So this is another super extended example of this. So you see that Plup is a bit more cautious about the threat range than you've seen other Sheiks. He's actually approaching until he's not only really giving him himself that much space to approach with. He's pulling back like right about here, which is about like Fox's full hop range. So again, he's just repositioning, constantly positioning, even though Fox is lasering, Fox is still dangerous because he's still actionable. Again, just repositioning, constantly repositioning. And again, we're back to repositioning. And then finally, Plup decides to proactively handle this situation. So this is the first time he's really done this. This is the first time he's really dashed at Fox before, this aggressively. And what he's doing is, you'll see that as he closes this space, he's getting to that threat range again. He's getting to that spacing. But what Plup does here is totally different from what we've seen before. Because whereas other Sheiks that we've seen so far would like dash back or wave dash back or like short hop away in this spot because they're trying to like play around Fox's approach option, here Plup is actually just trying to outright beat it with this F tilt. Like, this F tilt just outright beats Fox trying to approach here. And this is something you'll see Plup do a lot. Plup is probably the most aggressive Sheik in this spot, where he'll do this kind of F tilt, actually try and be aggressive with it, and like use F tilt run canceled, and actually aggressively push into Fox. It doesn't get much off of it, but it was still a really good neutral win. We're going to move to 358. So here, again, this is Plup doing something that not many other Sheiks do, where he whiffs the F smash, sees that he's at that threat range. Again, this is that range we're talking about. So Plup sees that this whole, not that, anything but blue color. You can see that Fox covers like this range, right? So Fox covers like this range, and ordinarily you would think that, probably Sheik is going to move into like this range that Fox isn't covering. But what Plup does is actually he reads that Fox is going to approach into this space, and then he goes up here onto the platform, where which he can use to cover that same space that Fox is approaching into, but cover with some sort of platform drop or shield drop aerial. So you see, Plup immediately super speedily repositions that platform, and then covers that area that Fox is approaching into with a shield drop fair. Doesn't work out, but again, really good idea, really good stuff. Melee is kind of just that way, where you can have a really good idea, and it just doesn't work out. So now we're going to go to 432. So here, this is another example of Plup being really aggressive in approaching into this spacing. Like being really aggressive with more contesting this spacing than the other Sheiks we've seen. Because again, so Fox is actionable right about here. Fox is actionable right about here. And he covers about this range. That's about his threat range. So, of course, we're going to see Plup go into this threat range and again try and directly contest with an F tilt. So you see that as he reaches the edge of that range, he's F tilting. And if Leffen had done the standard approaching option that a lot of Foxes will do here, the F tilt would have just eaten him up. And then again, so this is not the core example I'm talking about, but this is again just Plup really managing that spacing and playing around. And this is him kind of like playing around that short hop aerial spacing, but doing it with the short hop fair, which allows him to then whiff punish Fox's full hop aerial. We have another example coming up at 452. Hold on, let me go back. Oh, yeah, that's what I was looking for. So again, we see this is that same spacing, right? This is spacing we've been talking about this whole time. So we see Plup, again, reacting to that spacing. By this time, instead of doing a run cancel tilt here in that spot, because Fox is like 2%, The only run against up tilt that makes sense is up tilt. So Plup is doing the same kind of shield that like Swedish and Spark did, except here it's more aggressive. Here he's taking more space. So he sees that spacing is happening, and then to play around it, instead of actually retreating, he decides to take space. Because then, like, it shields him from taking damage, right, if Fox makes an approach. But also, if Fox does make an approach, it allows him to just continue moving forward. And then the next situation, and the last situation, was at 525. So it's kind of subtle, but this is the last thing I want to talk about. Because, so here, again, we see the spacing pop up. So, let's bring out Snipping Tool again. So, again, Fox's threat range. We got red pen, let's go. Extends like right about there. So all this space is free. She can safely occupy this space. But something that Plup sees is that Sheik can also safely occupy this platform right here and be both outside of Fox's threat range, but also threaten Sheik's shield drop aerials, which is kind of similar to what you would see with a lot of players when they do short hop aerials, like short hop on this spot. But with Plup, because his platform movement is so fast, he can also do it with these waveland, like waveland on the platform, turn around, shield drop fair, or shield drop bear. So you see that Plup moves onto that platform, and then turns around and sets up a fair that would, if Leffen did not overshoot, control Leffen right here. And even with Leffen overshooting, it still allows Plup to control that space with Bear. It allows him to still contest Plup's or contest Leffen's space with the shield drop Bear he just did. So that's about it. This video got a little bit lengthy, but I think it was solid. Yeah, well, let me know if you have any questions. I'm gonna upload this to my YouTube. Yeah, hope you enjoyed.